at the heart of the planet's oldest mountain range. A phenomenon has been occurring for decades that no government agency, research team, or scientist has ever been able to fully explain. Experienced hikers, seasoned hunters, and military veterans venture into the Appalachian wilderness and simply vanish just minutes after they were last seen, leaving behind no footprints, no scent, no trace. Tracking dogs freeze, compasses spin around on themselves, GPS devices stop working. People hear their name called from inside the trees by voices that sound exactly like those of their loved ones. And in one extraordinary case, a winged creature with glowing red eyes appeared before one of the deadliest disasters in American history. Everything you'll hear and record has been investigated, yet stays unexplained to this day, baffling and unsolved. Mountains that swallow people. The Appalachians stretch for more than 3,200 kilometers, from Alabama to Canada, traversing some of the oldest, densest, and most unforgiving wild regions on the planet. These mountains are among the oldest geological formations on Earth, estimated to be about 480 million years old, shaped by forces so immense and so slow that the rock beneath your feet seems truly prehistoric. Each year, millions of hikers, campers, and tourists push into these mountains, trusting boots, maps, and instinct. Yet some never make it back, and those who return sometimes bring back absurd stories, ones researchers have tried to explain for decades, still without success that make no sense. Researcher David Pollard spent years combing through national park archives, filing Freedom of Information Act requests, and meticulously cataloging disappearances that matched a very specific and very disturbing pattern. People disappearing a few minutes after being last seen by other members of their own group. Tracking dogs completely losing the trail in an instant, not gradually, but as if the trail had simply evaporated into thin air. Personal belongings found in places that search teams had already inspected several times. Bodies, when they are found, are discovered kilometers away from where anyone could logically expect to find them. When Pollard officially requested the complete data on missing persons from the National Park Service, he was quoted an exorbitant price of $1.4 million to compile it. Think about that for a moment. There is no centralized database recording the number of people reported missing in U.S. national parks, even though the Great Smoky Mountains alone welcome 12 million visitors each year. To many researchers, official silence is as unsettling as the disappearances and raises disturbing questions worldwide, cases that defy reason. Let's examine specific cases, because that's where it turns truly alarming. On October 8, 1976, a 16-year-old girl named Tranny Gibson was hiking with a school group along the Forney Ridge Trail in the Great Smoky Mountains range. She stopped to take a photo. Her group moved ahead a few meters, and when they turned back, she hadn't simply gotten lost. She had, in fact, disappeared. Dozens of rescuers combed the area for weeks and weeks. The dogs detected absolutely no scent. No drag marks were ever found. 5 years later, in September 1981, a woman named Thelma Pauline Melton was walking on the Deep Creek Trail with friends. She was known for walking fast, so when she pulled ahead on the path, no one worried at first. Minutes later, she vanished from sight. No one ever saw her again. No bodies, no clues, and no explanation that holds up under close scrutiny. Then there's the case of Joe Fagg, a 16-year-old scout who, in February 1970, stopped to rest for just 10 minutes while he was descending from the Great Smoky Mountains. His entire group was a short distance away. He waited for the others to catch up, but they never did. Days of intensive searching followed, and the only thing ever found was his gear, neatly arranged on a rock in the middle of a creek. No one could explain why he had removed it, nor how it had ended up there. His body was never found. What makes these three cases particularly troubling for investigators is not just the absence of a body, it's the total absence of any physical evidence. No tracks off the trail, no snapped branches, no turned soil. 3 youths, 3 decades apart, 3 utterly baffling deaths, all in the same mountain range. Before we continue, please like, subscribe, and enable notifications for updates right now. Voices, compasses, and silence. Here's an element that keeps coming up in dozens of accounts from hikers in the Appalachians, with no connection between them, and that deserves special attention. Witnesses describe hearing voices calling them by name from the depths of the forest, voices that seem familiar and warm, like those of a loved one or a trusted friend. always coming from a direction that leads directly away from the marked trail. Some researchers who specialize in wilderness disappearances call it the call, and this phenomenon appears both in modern accounts and in the very ancient oral traditions of the Cherokee. Cherokee people lived in these mountains for thousands of years before European settlers arrived, and gave distinct names to certain places in the range's core long ago. They called this region the Land of Darkness, warning travelers to cross it quickly and never, under any circumstances, look back. They described these places as spots where the boundary between the physical world and something else became dangerously thin. Besides the voices, many hikers independently report a second phenomenon, a total, supernatural silence that settles over a specific part of the forest. No birds, wind, or insects. A deliberate, suffocating silence like a held breath. Then the compasses turn. Many independent accounts describe compasses malfunctioning in specific areas of the Appalachians. GPS devices also fail with no technical explanation. Scientists point to the unusually high concentrations of magnetic minerals trapped in the region's ancient rock formations as factors that could contribute to this phenomenon. But even that explanation doesn't fully account for all the anomalies reported on various trails and across different decades. The lights that refuse to go out. In the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, there is a phenomenon that has been observed continuously for well over a century and still lacks any definitive scientific explanation. Round Mountain is a modest ridge located in Burke County, but above it, on clear nights, glowing orbs appear. They rise from the valley floor below, drift slowly along the ridge, change color, then simply disappear. Cherokee oral traditions refer to these lights hundreds of years before a European observer set foot in the region. The first European written account dates back to 1771. In 1913, a federal geologist was sent to investigate these reports. He concluded that the lights were train headlights reflected by the atmosphere. But a major flood in 1916 destroyed the nearby railroad tracks and cut electricity across the entire region for weeks, and the lights continued to appear undisturbed. Second inquiry in 1922 carefully mapped sightings and blamed them on headlights, forest fires, lanterns. But even today, in 2025 and 2026, visitors still gather along the Blue Ridge Parkway at night and continue to watch these glowing orbs rise and float above the ridge. Some researchers now believe that the enormous pressure on the ancient, quartz-rich rocks beneath the mountain could produce natural spheres of light visible to the naked eye. Others remain far less convinced by the natural explanations currently available. Mothman before the collapse. Now let's talk about the creature that became the most famous and most disturbing mystery in the entire Appalachian region, and the disaster that forced the world to take it seriously. In November 1966, near Point Pleasant in West Virginia, several unconnected witnesses began reporting sightings of a large winged humanoid creature with huge, glowing red eyes. He described it as about 2 meters tall, capable of flying for long periods, and able to keep pace with vehicles traveling at over 160 kilometers per hour. Local media coverage exploded, and within weeks, these sightings attracted national attention. Then on December 15, 1967, at rush hour, around 5 p.m., the Silver Bridge from Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed without warning, falling into the Ohio River. The entire 445-meter suspended span collapsed in less than 20 seconds. 46 people lost their lives, and 2 bodies were never recovered. Eyewitnesses described the bridge as buckling in a kind of chain reaction before vehicles began to topple into the icy waters of the river below. The engineers leading the investigation later determined that a single corroded link in the anchorage structure, weakened by more than 40 years of fatigue cracking, had triggered this catastrophic failure. Paranormal investigators and folklore specialists who studied these accounts emphasized that the concentration of sightings in the months leading up to the collapse was unprecedented in the history of unexplained creatures in the United States. More than 100 distinct witnesses reported encounters during that 13-month period within a radius of about 80 kilometers around Point Pleasant. Mothman sightings ceased completely and immediately after the bridge collapse. Several witnesses later came forward, claiming that the creature had appeared near the bridge itself that night. Whether it was a warning, a coincidence, or something far stranger, no investigator has ever provided a satisfactory answer. The Flatwoods Monster Case. The Appalachians saw another encounter, less noted than Mothman, yet likely clearer and more verifiable from witness-reported details. On September 12, 1952, in the small community of Flatwoods in West Virginia, a group of young boys saw a glowing object streak across the sky and appear to land on the top of a nearby hill. They rushed to take a look, accompanied by an adult and a local teenager. What they reported from the top of that hill has been analyzed and debated for more than 70 years. They described a silhouette 4 meters tall, with a dark body, metallic or wrapped in dark material, a bright, glowing red face, and non-human eyes. The silhouette emitted an acrid stinging odor, causing instant nausea and intense eye irritation in witnesses. Lasting for days, investigators who arrived on the scene found grass flattened into a circle and an oily residue coating the surrounding vegetation. Skeptics suggested that the witnesses may have mistaken a barn owl perched in a tree for a monstrous creature, with fear and fog severely distorting their perception. However, the documented physical symptoms, the residue, and the unusual marks on the ground are elements that a simple misidentification cannot satisfactorily explain. The community eventually embraced this mystery by creating a dedicated local museum that still attracts visitors from across the country every year. What lives in the hollows? Beyond famous cases and documented phenomena, the Appalachians keep still a vivid, rooted folklore tradition from real encounters told for centuries. The Wampus Cat is a lasting figure of Appalachian legend, described in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia as a huge cat-like beast that can walk on 2 legs, unleashing a shriek so sharp it causes pain and complete disorientation nearby instantly. Experienced hunters in the region have long reported hearing, in the dead of night, sounds that do not match any animal species recorded in North America. Researchers note that pumas, long considered extirpated from the eastern United States, have been the subject of a growing number of credible reports in the Appalachian states in recent years, suggesting that the wilderness may harbor more creatures than are officially acknowledged. But the screams reported in these long-standing encounters go far beyond what researchers who specialize in pumas typically document or acknowledge. Then there are the white things, reported across West Virginia and neighboring states for several generations. Tall, pale shapes haunt woodlines at night, sometimes upright, sometimes on all fours, then bolt into darkness, vanishing once they know you're watching. Above these personal mysteries lies a documented, unsolved scientific reality. The Appalachian Mountains contain thousands of networks of caves and deep underground passages that have never been explored or mapped by any human being. Geologists say much of the vast Appalachians cave network is still undocumented and unexplored today. Whatever lives in those lightless depths, whatever spins compasses, calls hikers by name from inside trees, and silently carries people off without a footprint or clue, it's still there, waiting beyond us, leaving no trace at all, ever. The mountains have kept their secrets for hundreds of millions of years, and they show absolutely no sign of wanting to reveal them anytime soon. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos.